Hey guys, welcome back for homework number 5. I'm going to get out of your way and let you copy this chart. So this chart is to give you a way to work with a value called the discriminant. So it's a huge fancy math word, the discriminant. So we have 3 options that you get with this tiny formula. So this formula, the b squared minus 4ac, you do it for what it turns out 3 different options. It could equal 0, it could be greater than 0, your answer could be less than 0. These are your 3 options. And what it does is after you find your answer, it tells you how to identify the type of solutions that gives you. So if you plug in values and your discriminant turns out to be 0, what you get are 2 answers that are actually equal to each other. So you'll have 2 equal real solutions. If your discriminant turns out to be greater than 0, so we plug in the numbers, turns out greater than 0, in other words, it turns out to be a positive number, that means you've got 2 real answers, 2 solutions that are not equal to each other. And then your third possibility for the discriminant is when you plug in your numbers into this small formula and it turns out to be a negative answer, it's less than 0, you're going to come up with 2 complex solutions. And the word complex over here, oh, you know what's showing up there. When you see complex, that means you're going to get some I values that show up. So these are your 3 options in dealing with the discriminant. You're going to plug in numbers, get an answer, identify what that answer means. Okay, using this chart, I'm going to show you how to do the problems. All right, let's get this out of the way. And you are definitely going to need this chart to answer all the questions for the discriminant today. Okay, so it starts off looking just like a quadratic formula. 4x squared minus 2x plus 5 equals 0. But when the question says find the discriminant and then identify what type, you've got 2 directions. So find discriminant, and then you have to identify type of solutions. So these problems today are 2 parts. First part, you plug in numbers to find discriminant. Second part, you have to identify what type of solutions you get. So on the examples today, on the homework problems today, there's 2 answers. Finding the discriminant itself, and then identify the type of solutions. So that chart I gave you is going to be like you have to have that chart to get this second answer. Okay, let's actually run one real quick. Okay, so we're still working a little bit with our values for A, B, and C. So A equals, B equals, C equals, A equals 4, B equals -2, C equals 5. We're still sticking with A's, B's, and C's. Our quadratic formula was very big. Your discriminant formula, much shorter. So the formula to find the discriminant is just this, b squared minus 4ac. So to find the discriminant, you only have 3 plug-ins to make. B squared 4ac. So we're still taking our values for A, B, and C, we're still plugging them in, but it's a smaller thing. So B, -2, A is 4, C is 5. So again, get to work, a negative number squared, that's positive, and then you got to roll with 4 times 4 times 5, which is 80. So your final answer for the discriminant turns out to be -76. So you got 2 answers. You just found your first one. So there's your first answer. Your discriminant turns out to be a -76. Now you got to look at your chart and see what that tells you about the answers you could get. If it's a negative, what that tells you, it's less than 0. So a -76 for your first answer means you're going to have 2 complex solutions. So these are your 2 answers you have to come up with. What's the discriminant? Discriminant's negative 76. What does it tell you about the solution types? It turns out to give you two complex solutions. So if we were actually going to do quadratic formula and do the problem, you would have some I values involved. So this is what you're doing. Each question, you find two answers. The number that tells you the discriminant, and then you identify what type of solutions. So you run that information. All right, let's do a couple more. I think once we do a few of these, it's going to be pretty easy compared to the problems we have been doing. So that was number one. Let's do a number two. So 9x squared plus 30x plus 25 equals 0. Okay, running our same old plan as always, finding our A's, B's, C's. We've got 9, 30, 25. So for this second example, we've got 9, 30, and 25. We have this formula, b squared minus 4ac. Discriminant, little formula. Let's plug in and find some answers. We've got A's, B's, and C's. B's first, then A, then C. And again, right about now you're thinking, I need me a calculator. Or you could just be waiting on me, like, all right, you tell me, what's 30 squared? All right, I'll tell you, it's 900. Then you got to take 4 times 9 times 20. Oh, I see where this is headed. This is also 900. So if you have 900 and you subtract 900, you just found your first answer. 900 minus 900, that's a 0. So when you're talking about my discriminant turning out to be 0, that's your first answer. Then we got to say, what does that mean? So my first answer is 0. And what does that mean? Well, if it's equal to 0, that means you're going to have two answers that are equal. So two equal real solutions. So again, on each one of the questions today, you find the discriminant, and then you identify the answer types. You provide the information that goes with it. So two answers, discriminant 0. What does it tell me? It tells me I have two equal real solutions if I were to work the whole question for the quadratic formula. So it identifies those types. All right. Let's do one last example here. So number 3, let's put it up there. So x squared plus 8x plus 10 equals 0. All right, here we go. And again, guys, we always like where we're headed. I'll tell you what, let's make it a challenge today. Let's make this a negative 10. So for this third example, let's make it kind of tough. So A, B, C, let's plug in a negative value right here. Let's keep you on your toes. So we got 1, we've got 8, we've got negative 10. With these values, we're plugging into our tiny formula today for the discriminant. So the discriminant only has 3 plug-ins. You got your B's, you got your A's, you got your C's. So B value is 8, A is a 1, but C is a negative 10. All right, and this is why I threw that at you. A little bit of a challenge. If you remember, you've got this negative here and you've got that negative there. When this negative hits that negative, oh, it turns out to be a positive. So you got 64 plus negative times negative positive. So this becomes 40. So when you're finding your first answer, when you're finding the discriminant, you got 64 plus 40. What do we got here? 104. Okay, first answer in the books, it's 104. Second answer, like, hey, what does that mean? What does it tell me about my solution types? Like, well, let me look at my chart. If my answer is 104, it's positive. It's greater than 0. What does that tell me if it's greater than 0? That means you're going to have two unequal real solutions. That's what it tells you, two unequal real solutions. Okay, and again, guys, every question today, 2 answers. Find out what your discriminant is. Identify what it means for your solutions, for your answers, if you were to go on and actually work it. All right. So there's your answers for that example number 3. Okay, so there's your 3 possibilities. A little shorter questions today. I know that makes you guys happy. So let's run it. For homework-5. So for homework 5, you got to do 2 things. You got to find the discriminant, and then you have to identify what type of solutions. So remember, on these problems, you've got 2 answers. First, you find the actual number that a discriminant turns out to be, and then the second, you identify what type of solutions. Whether you've got 2 equal real solutions, or 2 unequal real solutions, or 2 complex solutions. It'll be one of those 3. All right, let's get this out of the way. Let's put the numbers up on the board for homework 5. So we left off at 15, so we're picking up at 16. 5x squared minus 6x minus, ooh, there's that negative again. It's a good thing I showed you that one. Here's 17. 2x squared plus 3x plus 4. 18. 4x squared plus 20x is 25 equals 0. And one more down here. Let's do 4 of these. So x squared plus 7x minus 6 equals 0. All right, guys, let's check it out. So for homework 5, you've got 4 more, starting with 16, 17, 18, 19. You got to do 2 answers. You got to find the discriminant and then tell what the solutions are going to be, whether they're 2 equal real solutions, 2 unequal real solutions, 2 complex solutions. So you got to identify that information also. All right, 2 plus 3 plus 4, 4 plus 20 plus 25, 1, 7, negative 6. Awesome. All this looks great. This will be your homework assignment. Make sure you get that copied on your paper. It looks perfect. You're showing the formula. You're showing all the steps. You're sending an email to me with all of it looking awesome. So I can give you credit for your attendance. I can give you credit for your homework grade. All right, let's make sure we've got this all turned in. This is homework 5. So deadline for this is the April 10th. You'll get it to me before then. This is a pretty quick one. So deadline is noon, Friday, April 10th. But you'll get it to me before then. All right, guys, get on it. Make it look awesome.